Okay. Um, I have never done that. I've never done a live video before or anything like that, but this is my first attempt. What I'm going to talk about today, I've just made a couple of videos. Um, Not too many people have watched them, so I don't expect anybody actually watching this. But I'm going to talk today about my medical journey. The last 3 to 4 years, I just had some weird symptoms, fatigue, weakness. I couldn't recover from after exercise at the beginning. Some digestive problems. Sometimes I would have my stomach would just churn, like wouldn't stop churning, and I'd have like diarrhea, and the diarrhea would last for a few days. Um, my I also saw like eye floater kind of things every once in a while. See shadows kind of, and it almost felt like my body was like shutting down. And then I'd feel a little better, and then eventually it got where it was more of that than others. I went to a doctor about the diarrhea. I thought somehow something's wrong there, and stomach messing things up. I'm not getting the nutrition that's causing the other problems. They did a few tests. They checked out if I got any kind of parasite infection, anything like that. Nothing. The doctor basically kind of told me that there's nothing really wrong with me, and that I'm just crazy. Take some my lantern every once in a while for my stomach. So I didn't go back. Like a year and a half later, I went back to the same doctor with basically the same symptoms, only they were worse. I was also by that time. Um, it felt more like my body was shutting down. By that time, I had quit going to the gym. Before, I had been going like 4 times, and I was active doing other things outside of the gym, and I quit. I just didn't have any energy to do anything. My balance was starting to be off. I was having trouble going downstairs. I would have these periods of hot, cold, and then cramp up and stuff like that. Went back to that same doctor. He did a couple more tests. Basically told me nothing was wrong with me. I was probably just crazy, but he would schedule me for an MRI. I did that and passed me along to a neurologist. He did that. I saw a neurologist. They did all kinds of tests. They took 16 tubes of blood out of me one day. I had 2 different MRIs on my head, on my neck. They had me do a sleep study. They said they couldn't find anything. I had done symptom trackers online, and it was coming up like different infections, like Lyme, MS, Lou Gehrig. I didn't know what was going on. After doing the sleep study, that doctor went through. He found a few things that were off, and he went through them with me. And he said, "Well, I didn't need it. I don't have sleep apnea, so it wasn't his problem." So, and he actually asked me what was wrong with me. I told him I didn't go to the doctor. I didn't know. I went to the doctor to find out. So, I don't know. I know other people have had problems with that same doctor. After that, I talked to a physician's assistant in the neurologist office, and she told me that my symptoms showed that I had a B12 deficiency. But they tested my B12, and it was just slightly elevated. It was at a Vera Hospital in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. My levels were slightly high on a Vera's chart, But I looked in other charts that other places use, and they were still in the normal range. So like that. I actually had later. I had more blood tests done. I went to the Mayo Clinic, and I had more tests done, and the B12 and was actually lower than it was then, and low and in their normal. The Mayo Clinic, that doctor, he came to the conclusion that it was just chronic fatigue, or that I was just stressed or just crazy. I was making it up. And he wanted me to go to what they have at Mayo Clinic, a fatigue camp, and do art projects. And I disagreed with that. I could tell something was wrong. And they told me, one of the things he told me, that I should exercise. Well, I had been exercising, doing something every single day prior to where this got worse, and I couldn't. I would have still been exercising. I kind of gave up on doctors for a while. Then, I don't know, my body was just tight all the time. I went to a chiropractor. He adjusted my neck, and right away, things loosened up after he did it. But a day or two later, I would be back, the tight hands. Um, and at first, in the fatigue, along this time, the fatigue, my hands would cramp or whatever. If I did something, even as little, at first it was like if I shoveled snow or after I lifted weights, I had problems. By this time, it was just after reading a book and holding the book in my hands would cramp up after a while. And if that, I don't know. I knew I tried a different doctor. I couldn't, what I was trying, different diet kind of things, nothing would seem to work. I felt I was steadily getting worse. I went to a different doctor. He did some more tests, some tests on my heart, more blood tests. Couldn't find nothing. Basically told me nothing's wrong. They sent me to a movement disorder doctor. Movement disorder doctors deal with Parkinson's, dystonia, kind of things. A lot of my symptoms are basically Parkinson and dystonia symptoms. Gave me, put me on Cinnamon for a while, and that made me feel better. But as it would run out, I felt way worse. And also, I had twitching actually started, which actually is a symptom of Parkinson's. This medicine was making me have more. It's probably getting worse. I quit that. I looked into, because my symptoms were so close to Parkinson's, I looked into alternative therapies for Parkinson's, and I came across thiamine HCl. There's a Facebook group. There's studies. There's a doctor in Italy that helps people with that. He's sick now, but as soon as one of my biggest symptoms, I don't think I said this in the beginning, was kind of a pins and needles. Like the second day I started taking the thiamine, the pins and needles was like gone. I felt better. I still had some fatigue, balance problems, some of the eye problems, but my body wasn't cramping up as much. It was still did sometimes. I tried increasing the thiamine a little bit. I did that. That all went away. I stayed there for a couple months. I was feeling better, doing better, but I still balance problems, still had fatigue, still felt weak. I saw an episode of Mystery Diagnosis on TV, and there's a lady that the episode was about. Her symptoms pretty much matched mine perfectly, and her diagnosis was that she had a B12 deficiency, and they gave her shots, and she got better. Well, I knew before this, my grandma had gotten B12 shots for a long time, and like monthly shots but but she died when I was in like 6th grade from a heart attack. That'll come back into it. So I'm not getting any better. I decided to try the B12. Got some melts, and I started taking them, and it went away. I feel better, and kind of there's actually things that article that Parkinson's symptoms are close to B12 symptoms. The and B12 symptoms are actually really more common than you think. They're common in elderly, vegans, alcohol, people with stomach problems, people that have stomach surgeries, intestine surgeries, people that have a lot of acid in their stomach, and that kind of relate, or people that have a lack of intrinsic factor. But from my tests, from 2 years later, I already know my B12 levels are in a normal way. There's also an inability to use B12. And there's actually at least 8 different genetic disorders. Some of them people are born with, some of them come on later, or actually can kind of be acquired. Well, I started taking this is another thing here. I put this in now. Along with the inability to use the B12, homocysteine builds up in the body. Well, high homocysteine problems have been related to heart problems. My grandma had a heart attack before she had the heart attack that killed her. I don't know, have like rapid heart rate sometimes, just like randomly, along with my other symptoms. And also, when I had my other symptoms and I was having the worst days, I would like have to go to the bathroom over and over again. Have to urinate like I don't know, 3 or more times an hour. Sometimes it felt like, and the not being able to break down the B12, homocysteine builds up. The way your body gets rid of homocysteine is by urinate and get rid of it. I don't know. So the B12, it's a sublingual. I take it under my tongue. I take a 5,000 microgram, which is 8,000 over 8,000% of the RDA, and that's what I need. I have not went in for genetic testing. I had been in contact before with a rare disease organization that's hooked to Sanford Hospital in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and I contacted them. They haven't got back to me yet, and I've looked at the studies, but this is more common. There's 8 different genetic disorders where people can't make use of vitamin B12, and the cure, there's not a cure. The treatment for it is to take vitamin B12 shots or sublingual, take it under your tongue, and along with that, some folic acid, which prevents the homocysteine from building up, and then basically just get back to living. My other thing, I've also started drinking bone broth every morning. Bone broth has stopped my stomach from churning the B12, giving me more energy, less twitching, less cramping. I sleep better. But why did I do this? I don't know. But just that I'm trying to make some videos, see what I can do, get a YouTube channel going. But my advice is follow your symptoms. Don't give up on getting better, no matter what the doctor or anybody else says. If you think you can get better, get better. Find a way. If it takes a year, if it takes, I don't know, a few years like it did for me. The doctors aren't always right. Follow your symptoms and pay attention to family history. There's a whole lot, and just dig, because the answers are out there. Something could happen, like me just, I knew that these were the symptoms. The doctor of lack of B12, from what I looked up and from what the physician assistant told me, and because the test said I was just a little bit high, I didn't know there was these different diseases where people couldn't make use of vitamin B12. But, well, just don't give up. Follow, and you never know. Coming across some a little bit of mystery diagnosis may help you out. Well, thanks for watching. If anybody ever watches, thanks.